Hello and welcome to this, which is our first webinar in our 2019 Smart Building series. And today we are talking about the power of the workplace habit. And I'm very happy to welcome Anne Wernand from Mapiq to talk to us today. Hi, Anne, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing really well. How are you?
Great, thanks. Happy New Year. And obviously Happy New Year to everybody out there as well. I just want to start off, say a couple of things. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Haystack, Project Haystack. They agreed to sponsor our webinars again this year, and specifically Haystack Connect. I don't know what everyone is doing in May this year, but if you would like to have a trip to sunny San Diego, then you can join us for the 2019 Haystack Connect conference, and that's going to be all about the open source project Haystack work, about metadata tagging for smart building data. So please go to haystackconnect.org to find out all about that and book your tickets. Then also just want to say, of course, if you guys have questions for myself or for Anne and about her work in behavioral research, then I'm happy to take those. Anne's going to give us quick presentation, and then after that we'll be doing some Q&A. So if you type those in, I'll be able to put questions to her or myself. And then finally, don't forget that this is recorded, so this content will be available. We'll put it up on SoundCloud, on our website, on iTunes. So yeah, feel free to subscribe through those channels and obviously share with your colleagues. So yeah, let's get started. Anne, again, thanks for agreeing to do this. Maybe you could just explain a bit about your background and what you work.
Yes, thank you. Yes, well, I'm Anne. I am the behavioral researcher at Mapiq, and Mapiq is actually a smart building platform. We develop software, but my background is really psychology. So I've done a master in social and health psychology and always been really fascinated by the way people are using space, and also, sometimes the unpredictable behaviors we see. Like we imagined a way that people will use a certain space, and then we see total different behaviors when we let them enter. And I think that's always fascinating, and see how technology is able to nudge that in a way. So that's also what we're going to talk about today. And I think, everything is also on your side, but I just want to mention also really quickly that all my research is also published at mapiq.com. So that's also where you can find a lot of pieces, if you are interested after this talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be putting a link to stuff that we talk about up on the website after this. So you'll be able to, if you go to memoori.com, you'll be able to find everything that we talk about today.
Great. Sounds good. Okay. Then let's get started, I think.
Let's do it.
Well, today I'm going to talk about the power of the habit, and actually about the influence of habits on the way people use the modern office of today that is designed to work activity-based. And to start off, I would love to go over some, the presentation isn't going forward, James.
Oh, no, that's annoying.
1 second, maybe I can do this.
I can see your mouse moving there. Maybe you could restart the presentation.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah, okay. And I'm going to start with going over the benefits of the modern office today. And I think we are really aware of the benefits that these offices have for the managers and the real estate owners, because of course this way of working, activity-based working, gives you the chance to put more people into less space, which is automatically giving you cost savings, but also you save energy because certain floors are sometimes not occupied and you don't have to heat them. So it's also good for the environment. And of course, today it's a tremendous like gain in the war for talent, because these offices have great designs and people really want to work there. So for the managers, it's also really a gun in the war for talent to find the best people. But today I really want to talk about the benefits it has for the employees, because they are sometimes overlooked. And to start off, because it has a lot of benefits, this office offers employees all types of spaces that they can use for different types of activities. So as you can see on the picture, these girls are sitting down at a couch to really have a catch up together, get things aligned. But these offices have all types of spaces. So conference rooms, different types of workstations, sometimes even a barista is in the entrance hall. So all these types of different spaces that are really good in supporting a certain type of activity. And these offices are also really a meeting place. And I think that's something the last couple of years we see, that the office becomes less a place where you come really only to work, do individual work, but really meet with your colleagues, really see them face to face in a time where virtual meeting rooms and phone calls are so, part of the day-to-day work life. But really looking your colleague in the eye, having a face-to-face meeting is still one of the most productive ways to go about work, I would say. And this office really, stimulates ad hoc encounters and sometimes some serendipity of bumping into somebody you didn't know yet. And the third aspect that's really a benefit for the employees, which is super important, is actually autonomy. These offices give people the autonomy to choose the places they work, but also to structure the day the way they want. And autonomy is actually something that's really valued these days with the millennial generation coming up, and they actually kind of demand already this sense of autonomy from their organizations. And if we look to research about autonomy, the University of Concordia, for example, in Montreal, Canada, found that giving employees more autonomy at work makes them happier and more productive. And even better at their job, except because they perform better, they have higher employee commitments and lower turnover. So it's actually a really, really good thing. And they even found this even because it's especially true for work that is complex and requires some sense of creativity, but it's also found that in routine jobs where everything is already pretty laid out what people should do, giving them a little sense of autonomy enhances not necessarily productivity, but it does enhance their job satisfaction. So I think we're onto something here, that autonomy is really an important concept that we shouldn't overlook. But however, these benefits, they're really obvious for people that are working in modern office spaces, but people seem to still be hesitant to work activity based, because when you look at research, only 4 to 10% are actually moving around the office and making use of these benefits and switching workstations. So we were thinking about what's going on here, and how can we empower people to work smart and use these benefits to their advantage and start using space in a more optimal way. So we dove into that as Mapiq. And then we come to the fact that we are actually all really creatures of habit. And I think that's also a really good thing, but almost 40% of what we're doing during a day is completely on automatic pilot. So a lot of behaviors you don't even think about when you enter a room and choose a certain path that's already premeditated. And I think that's really effective, because if I would speak for myself, like writing a research or getting a cup of coffee, if those two things would cost me this exact same amount of energy, we would be really doomed to plan and guide and consciously be aware of every action we're doing. So actually these habits and routines are helping us being more efficient and accurate, and also save a lot of time. And to give an example of extreme example of that, this is Max Verstappen. I tried to put a little bit Dutch in the presentation, you guys. This is Max Verstappen. He's a Formula 1 driver, and he is one of the best of the world. And he's actually, the top athletes are actually the masters of routines. They really embody them, because actually everything that Max does is not in his conscience. He does everything automatically, and it's really top athletes are constantly, you know, they repeated it so many times that they are perfection when it comes to performing the action they are doing, that they don't even think about it. And they really, you know, are super accurate in the task they are performing. So that's always a good example, I say, on how effective we could be. So what do we do the other 60% of the day? Well, then we make decisions, and we make all types of decisions. So it's already in the morning. What should I eat for breakfast? Which door do I choose when I walk into the office? What should I wear? What should I get for lunch? Like, what should I pick for this project, or where should I write this blog about? All kinds of decisions. And I think we try to save a lot of brain power to cut down on the number of decisions we want to make during a day. And I think this is also a good example of someone who does this in a really extreme way. This is someone who fixes the door. This is Steve Jobs, because you see that people who are actually diminishing the times of decisions they make in the morning, called the uniforms of success. This guy was always wearing the black turtleneck, and it's actually a really good example of just, you know, diminishing decisions and making sure that your brain power goes to the right decisions you have to make on a day. Another example is that Dr. Dre always wears a Nike Air Force One. It's just, you know, no, he doesn't even have to think about that. So I think that those are pretty good examples of the fact that we are actually creatures of habit, which we perform a lot of our actions automatically, which is really effective. And we try to diminish our decision making and focus on the things we want to make a conscious decision about. And that's, you know, during a work day, doing your work. So how does a habit then, how do we form a habit? Well, a habit has 3 aspects, and it starts with a trigger or a cue. I'm going to use those 2 words, I think, both for this theme, and that's something that sets off a routine. So it could be anything. It could be something you see in the building. It could be it would be time related. That also in the morning you have certain routines that set into place. It could be a feeling that when you feel a little bit excited, and then you perform certain routines. Could be all kinds of triggers that put in motion a routine. And when we talk about a routine in this scenario, that's the behavior we see or the emotional response we see people performing. And in this scenario, that is obviously pick one desk and sit there the whole day, or put your stuff there and go to meetings for 5 hours long. So this is actually the thing we want to change, obviously. This is something where we have potential, changing those routines. But a routine is always followed by a reward, and that's the reason why we are in this loop. And the rewards is something you get from it. So in this scenario, it's no stress, no decisions. You don't have to think about it anymore. And those rewards, can be really strong. And they are really important in keeping that loop in place. So when we go through that. So we know now that in a workplace, people want to rely heavily on their habits to function, but we put people in a place that is constantly overwhelming them with conscious decisions and choices. Without any guidance or control. So it's not that surprising if you put that facts together that they make the easy decision and claim that share and don't move around. And but that's not what we want. So and that's what we're going to talk about now. Oh, first I'm going to give you some examples of the behaviors we see then if we don't give them any guidance. So for workplaces, I already mentioned it a couple of times, people start claiming desks. They go sit at the same spot, come in early to claim that spot, sit to the next people, and they don't switch workstations or any type of activity. And then in meeting rooms, you see the same things happening. So they book meeting rooms and they don't show up. or they always book the same rooms. People, they sometimes even only have 4 meeting rooms in their head, and those are the ones they book. But sometimes the office has more than 50 available, so they should, they're not aware of that. Or they book a room which is actually for 10 people, and they sit there with 2 because they just don't want to think about it, and that's in their 4 choices, and they pick the available one. So in these behaviors, we don't see that much of the autonomy and the freedom and the socializing aspect, that the office has to offer. So we would love to change, to see that change and see people really happy and experience the benefits of these offices. So then I come to the behavioral change part, and I think there's so much research on this topic, and for today I picked 2 theories about behavioral change and see how we can apply that to technology. And the first one actually relates to the habit loop, because we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this loop and see, how can we change this. So if you look at the habit loop, I already mentioned that you want to change the routine, and that's also the golden rule if you look at changing habits, because the golden rule is that you can that it's the easiest to keep the same triggers and rewards, and then change the behavior. So then the first thing we have to do is to identify the cues and the rewards that we're looking for and connect them to another routine, basically. So when we look at those things, at the triggers and the rewards we see in these behaviors in the office, the triggers, for example, are often linked with timing. And when you look at the office, they're often in the morning, actually, that these routines are set into action. So when people start their workday, or after lunch, or after a meeting. So really those moments in between. That they are sensitive to those cues and that they set in those routines, or where they're going to go on the automatic pilot. The location is also really important, and it's kind of like the same as in timing. It's always the locations in between. So it's the entrance halls, the atriums, the lunch rooms, like the locations where people have like an in-between moment between 2 tasks, where they are sensitive to a cue that would put them in another routine. And emotions, that's a really strong one. So if someone feels eager or to get to work, or sometimes when they are a little bit rushed and feel stressed because they're late, that also sets off a certain routine. So that's also a moment where you have like also an opening to maybe see if you can set another routine in action. And the rewards, well, it's what I already mentioned. It's a lot about experiencing no stress and making no decisions. That's how they feel. They don't want to have that feeling that they're not going to have a place, or and that they come back from a meeting and that they have to look for places. So it also has to do with the perception of time saving, which is, I think, really a perception. But yeah, then you still have to take it seriously, and it feels like a reward. I've also put like the feeling of being autonomous and being a great colleague in there, because I think those are rewards that now don't get that much attention, but we can really make them more strong, to give people as a reward of the feeling that they are in control of their workday, and they are the ones who structure it, and feel that they are the master of their own schedule. So I think that's where the pretension is. So that was the first thing we learned, and now we're going to the second model of behavior change, and this is more about conscious change. So we looked at the habits, which are set in motion from automatic behavior, but this theory of planned behavior, is more about the conscious change. And this theory has 3 aspects that are actually influencing intention to change your behavior. And the first one is attitude, and I think that really speaks for itself. It is as a favorable or unfavorable evaluation of a behavior or an interest. And when we look at activity-based working, that's some people are positive, but a lot of people have kind of a negative attitude towards that change. The second is the norm, which is really what does the group where you belong to do? And I think this is a really important one. And you see also that when a company switches to activity-based working as a whole, that's more difficult when someone just switches a job where, in the old job, there was no activity-based working, and this person starts in a company where there is activity-based working. It's less complicated because then the norm is already there and people just have to go with it, and they are, eager to get in line or be part of the group. And then the third one, and that's the most important one, that's the control, and it's actually perceived control. And it refers to the perceived ability to significantly alter a situation. And I always use the example of, your influence on climate change here to explain this perceived control. Because when you ask people to, take a shorter shower because it's good for the planet and you will save a lot of energy, it doesn't necessarily feel for them that will change that scenario, that if they take a shorter shower, because it doesn't give them any sense of control. However, if you give people the smart meters of today, that they can look how much energy they are using during a day, and then they see if you take a 30-minute shower, you will use more energy than 1 minute, then all of a sudden they have there's a good chance that they will change their behavior because they have this feeling that they can control something and they see it. And if you look at the model, because you see that all three of them influence the intention of actually changing behavior, but only control is able to do it directly. So if you give people that sense of control about changing their own behavior or their situation, that has the biggest effect. So we now distinguished a little bit of a window. We've identified the cues and the rewards and understand that we really have to increase actually the feeling of control for an employee if you want to support them during a workday in an activity-based working office. So the perceived control, really important. So let's take a look on how technology can do that, or what kind of role technology has in this change. Well, I think when people think about technology in the smart building world and also in office spaces, they often think about IoT, analytics. They see graphs and sensors who can measure the occupancy data. And of course, this is a super important aspect of what technology can add to your building. However, we really see technology as a connection between people and their building or office. And if you look at this connection, then you actually are looking to two aspects of it. And the first one is actually the analytics side of things. So it creates overview and insight, and we measure how a building is used. We can, for example, see which meeting rooms are popular, which floors are occupied the most, which days have the highest peak moments. You can even take that to real time, that you can see at this moment, like which meeting rooms are free, etc. However, we really believe that it's really important if you want to influence these habit routines and give people more control, that you also include the end user in this technology aspect. So really make sure that they also get the benefits of data. And we really believe that you should give people the digital version of their building back. So we provide them with a digital version of their building where they can look for colleagues, where they can book meeting rooms themselves, they can find available workplaces and other facilities. And why is this so important? Because actually this information gives people a higher sense of control, because they see what they can do. They have an overview. They have the power of booking it themselves. It gives them, this opportunity, and they can also start experiencing rewards from this new routine of looking, on, for example, where a place is, instead of just automatically walk to the desk you always go to. So it's also is the chance to to create a moment where they can create routines that actually provide them with a whole new bunch of rewards during a workday. So this is really the place where they can form new habits. And I think also the beautiful thing about this loop is when you look at it, that it's also puts a manager or real estate owner into the position of always being able to adapt to their ever-changing needs and ever-changing behavior of a workforce. So it's not like a static thing. You have to be constantly aware of what's happening and communicate that back to people to be able to really create a flexible space. And to give an example, this is a booking example. As I already told you, people are constantly booking kind of like 4 rooms that they have in their mind, and that's not really flexible. But what software could do is that, as you look at the left screen, you can, for example, if you bump into someone in the hallway and you haven't talked to them in a long time, then you can look at your phone and see, hey, what's available near to us, where you need some localization technology, but then you can easily see like, hey, oh wait, here around the corner we have a place where we can sit down and have a quick chat, and that behavior becomes your routine. And you can also do that during lunch, like when you get in a conversation and you realize that you have to be updated on a project. You can already look like, hey, oh, maybe in 45 minutes when we're done eating, should we meet in that place? I already book it. Like you set in motion a whole other type of behaviors. And then we can also suggest to go somewhere, and based on some qualities of rooms or features of rooms, you can also be surprised and experience some new things during a workday, which is also could be really inspiring. So to sum up, we really believe that companies should not only provide managers with the benefits of data, but also make data really meaningful for the users of the building. And technology could really be of importance in creating this perfect workplace by supporting habits that trigger the right routines and rewards. That's one of the most important things. Stimulate autonomy by giving an overview and insights, and through this increase the perceived control of people that they have of their surroundings, their own workplace. And last but not least, create a feedback loop that also puts you in this position to constantly adapt to the changing needs of your workforce. So for example, when a certain department is growing, that you can always see that because they use more phone booths, and you can always anticipate on that by maybe putting some more phone booths on the 5th floor and communicate that to the people so they can actually start using that. I think we really believe that this modern office has a lot to offer, and that technology has the potential to set in new routines and generate rewards for employees, which is creating spaces where sharing is really the norm. And serendipity is really celebrated as you meet new people every day, and that autonomy is not only valued but is really leading to a better workday. So I'm really open for questions. I think that was it. Thank you for listening. I'm looking forward to it.
That was fascinating. Thank you. And as Anne said, anyone who has questions, please type them in. You should be able to do that on your console. And I'll get them here, and then I can put those questions to Anne. There's, I'm sure, a million questions you can ask about behavior and how that impacts on, the way that people are in offices, how perhaps we can make the workforce more productive and use technology to do that. And there's a couple of things I think. Well, first of all, I think I definitely take away from that, like this concept of autonomy, giving that power to the workforce. I mean, so there is then obviously like a direct correlation, I guess, with work that people have done between autonomy and people being happier. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true.
And then is there then, if you extend that, is there also kind of an obvious causal link between people being happy and being more productive in the workspace?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think of course when you're happy, you are, I think, more productive. But there's also a direct link between this autonomy and being actually more productive, as this research from the University of Concordia shows. Is actually, yeah, creating better performance, higher employee commitment. They ask this in questionnaires, so that it's still a subjective answer, but yeah, and also lower turnover. So when they give more autonomy, they actually saw like the turnover went down. So yeah, you could say that.
Yeah, and that's a hugely important factor, I think, for in the knowledge-based economy. Is it's really hard now for companies to find the right staff.
Yeah, and
retain them.
I think also, yeah, that we are already there. That there's a lot of autonomy in the way people can able to form their job in a way, do their job in a way that they think is best to get results. But then we are not yet providing them with the same amount of autonomy in their workplace. So then there's still like have to look for rooms and book through meeting systems that are not really fast. And I think that's or through a secretary or something. So it's also kind of a gap between those things, like the autonomy you get in your job and then the autonomy you have over your workplace.
Mm. Yeah, and I guess does that also link into kind of people feeling ownership towards
Exactly.
it? Yeah, if they are able to have some kind of autonomy over it.
Exactly. Yeah.
There was something else that I picked out as well. I think it was the first example. You're talking about emotions, and it made me think a little bit of NLP, where I know people that you can, anchor certain emotions. And I just wondered, I guess, that then certain rooms, I guess, would trigger different emotions in different people. I mean, then if you're thinking, or as then somebody who may be designing workspaces or thinking about making workspaces more interesting, can you trigger emotions in particular rooms?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of research already been done how environments trigger, and especially color, I would say, like what's used in the spaces and what triggers certain emotional responses. So that's also one of the reasons I think that now having a lot of green and plants, which is kind of soothing and that's now a trend in office spaces. But also they, I think, experienced with red rooms for brainstorming that people are activated and feel energized. I think you can definitely make sure that if you want to do a certain activity, which asks a certain mindset or emotional response, then you can find a room that's actually stimulating it for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I guess it ties into the activity-based work concept where you would design a specific room specifically for different tasks.
Exactly.
I think you mentioned there sort of green plants, biophilia. It's something that we've kind of coming across a little bit more. I mean, what are your views on that? I mean, is there an obvious link between kind of natural environments and people being happier and more productive?
Yeah, well, I think of course it also has to do with a great design. That it's of course it's great to be in a space that has a great design and a lot of plans, because it's just, I don't know, you become a little bit more relaxed and happy. And I think that that does something with your productivity. But I think that the effects are maybe not that big as sometimes people say they are. Like, I don't know. I have to get into that though. But this is my opinion. I would say.
Yeah, cool. And I think, like, I guess if I was to sort of hazard a guess about people who are going to be listening to us talk, I would be like a combination of vendors, so people selling technology into this place, but also owners, operators, people who operate buildings and perhaps want to make them more productive. From the technology side, are there some good examples you can talk about where you've seen that technology can be used to change behavior? I mean, you obviously give the app example, but are there ones where you think, for example, I was thinking, a company that perhaps has a limited budget and wants to, do something that has quite a lot of impact. What might that be?
Yeah, I think it's really about thinking about what you actually need or what you want to give your employees. So, and that can be like, it doesn't have to be that expensive. So, for example, if you want to just give them insights in which areas are busy and not like on individual workplaces, but just as a rough, estimate, like, hey, here are a lot of people. I would expect that it would be a little bit more noisy than on the third floor. You can actually do that already with Wi-Fi sometimes, but it's not that specific. But if it's already answering your question or your need, then you can definitely do already a lot with not a tremendous investment in hardware, especially. I think that's where a lot of people are worried about. But you need to think about what you want to give your employees first. And not start thinking about like what sensor do I need or what sensor do I want, but really like what kind of information do I want to give my people?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Something we've written about, using technology as the tool, right? You don't start with the technology, but start with the problem and then work out how you solve that problem.
Yeah.
Maybe technology is the tool to do that. Yeah. I was also interested in your opinion about co-working spaces. And I think for us, like was a huge trend in last year, right? And a few years before that, but certainly last year, it took up a lot of press, a lot of people talking about that and what impact it might have on commercial real estate. Can you talk about that more from a behavioral aspect? I mean, what is there? What did you attribute, its rise to? Something to do with
I think it's really interesting, and what I think from behavioral side point of view and co-working spaces, it's the best example I think you can have when you talk about creating a place where people meet and connect and find the right connection they're looking for a certain skill and they can find that. But it's also because these co-working spaces are often focused on like freelancers or really small companies. I actually worked for one at the Impact Hub, and I was actually a community manager at that time, and my only job was making sure that people were connected. So when someone came in, they had to sit down with me, 30 minutes conversation, and that I started thinking like, okay, you have to talk to that person, you have to talk to that person. This guy can help you. And I think this is still one of the skills that technology could take over to do this matching in these co-working spaces and make sure that the right people find each other. Because sometimes they were sitting next to each other and then I walked by, hey guys, I think you guys should talk because you're both in this industry. But how technology is able to stimulate those encounters between people and connections between people is still, I think it's interesting because there is a lot of potential, but then like in this specific co-working space where they really found that still the first step had to be taken by a human. So because otherwise you put like the other person always in the active mode, like, oh, I'm going to look for someone I need. And you actually don't want to do that. It already comes to that person in some sense. And I think there's a lot of potential still that technology can fill that gap.
Right. I guess what you were talking about, the serendipity of meeting new people or hanging out in new places that might create a new conversation and a new perspective that solves problems or helps the company a bit more.
Yeah, it's also, I think like those co-working spaces are really good in building a community, and that's also because they have those community managers often a lot of the time who are actually doing that constantly by creating events and making sure everybody has what they need. And now we're now starting to think about how can technology also take over that role to create this community of people who are working together. And what role does it have in that sense? So I think, yeah, it's an interesting, it's still developing, I think.
Yeah, and I think having worked in both environments, I thought actually this kind of role of community manager is something I think that bigger companies can really learn from co-working spaces, right? Is that
yeah, definitely. It's really, yeah, I think
like almost the office manager role is kind of dying, right? And actually it's the community manager, it makes more sense now, where someone just there to bring people together, organize events, create an atmosphere, create the community within the organization.
Yes, exactly. I think that it's only gonna they're gonna learn from each other. I think also the corporate world is gonna the co-working world is gonna learn from the corporate world in some sense.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that plays out this year. I mean, I think that there's some interesting signs about what might happen in that business, but it's definitely still growing, which is and also we're seeing like some of the corporate real estate companies now create their own co-working brands as well. So we'll see how.
Yeah, that's true. That's also a trend we spotted, that they that they turning their office into co-working spaces with this first floor is also open for other companies, for example, to meet. Yeah, we see that trend also evolving. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's inspiring.
Anyone who's listening, don't forget you can ask questions for Anne, for myself. We're very happy to answer anything about Anne's presentation, or indeed some of the other work that for example, stuff that Mapiq's doing, stuff that I'm doing. Feel free, type your questions in. Anne, I think I was also interested in we talked or touched on data analytics, that kind of technology. And we talked about, optimizing space and the benefit of that to the business, being able to repurpose it, use it more efficiently. Do you see, like, beyond that, what are some of the perhaps other uses of this kind of technology, or having a deeper understanding of have you guys?
I think. Yeah, well, I think that this type of technology is essential in that sense. If you want to go to an optimization of space and being able to also adapt space, I think that's actually the next step. That if you know how it's used, you are able to nudge people to the right places that are suiting their needs in the most optimal way. Then the next step is being able to starting to adjust spaces and to when we see that a conference room, for example, is never used, then that you'll be able to create something different and with a few changes make the real estate more flexible, I would say, because now it's already static. It's developed for a couple of years, and it's not working in these times, I would say. And the workforce changes too quickly, and their needs also change. So this technology puts you in a position to give insights in that and to communicate it to people, and also see how you can start adjusting and make sure that you are really getting the most out of your space. And that's I kind of look at it that way.
I think this concept of like nudging behavior is really fascinating to me. The behavioral economics, right? And the retail have been really or done some really interesting work in using that, applying those principles to retail space, right? To get people to buy things or behave in a certain way.
Or take the stairs. The stairs is a really famous one. Yeah.
This is something I think we're going to see more and more of in the workspace.
I totally agree. I think it also has to do a lot with design. I think, like the staircase example of that, when you walk on the stairs, that there's a piano going. It is a combination with the physical space and the design aspects you can add to that, and some technological things you can do. For example, that the music goes on when you walk towards a certain direction, and that nudges you towards a quiet area, for example. Yeah, that kind of things would be awesome.
Yeah, and even sort of nudging behavior towards, I don't know, not just movement in the space, but perhaps towards, trying to make people perhaps collaborate more or improve in some way their productivity during the day, even if that might mean, working a little bit longer, for example.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Taking so longer at lunch. I know these are kind of not things that people are perhaps supposed to do, but I guess, that is ultimately there has to be a balance, of course. But
yeah, and I think nudging is also, it's really about guiding the unconscious behaviors, right? Like the habit routines that we're not really consciously deciding on where to go, or if you sit longer during lunch. It's really about giving people the feeling that they decide that for themselves, but actually you already thought about it.
Yeah, good point. Something else I was interested in your opinion on was this kind of, obviously we're much more connected. We all have phones on our desks, and this kind of like interruption, problems that we're having more of. I've seen some report evidence of things, for example, where they said there was some Slack outage. For anyone who doesn't know, Slack is this kind of like communication tool for companies. And actually they noticed in some companies that productivity went up when it wasn't working, right? Which is, of course, totally counterintuitive to
really?
Yeah. Now, and I'm sure that's probably just a small example, perhaps not the overall one, but I mean, from your perspective as, behavioral researcher, have you, what is this interruptions having on us and our behavior, and is it something that we need that we need to factor in when we're talking about buildings, or even trying to
interruptions during the day? You mean the pop-ups, for example, from Slack and
things like that, or social media,
like that,
people using social media at work, or
well, I think that's a difficult one, because this is something not only related to work, because it also happens in our the private life, right? That WhatsApp is always on, and we have like 3 social media channels we have to constantly check. And the thing that I can say about that is that it does something with your attention span, and they research, that's researched, and that we could say that the younger generation who is actually constantly interrupted, you can say, have a shorter attention span than the older generation. So that means that they can focus a little bit, not that long on a task, but on the other hand, they are better in switching between tasks. So they need less time to get into a new task. So which is obviously, if you put that next to the fact that you're constantly interrupted and have to dive into something new, that you see that happening. But what it eventually will mean on how productive and the things we do, or that we produce, I don't know. So it has an effect on our attention and how our brain works. That's true. But I don't know what the effects of that will be eventually, and if we need that kind of focus still, or that we just have a small group of people who can do that, and then the rest is really good in switching between tasks. So there is an effect. I think we're going to see it the upcoming years, and I'm also curious.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, sort of the nature of work is changing anyway, right? Isn't it? So it's not necessarily, that perhaps a lot of people need to have, that deep focus and attention on specific tasks.
Yeah, maybe. But if it's the case, like the other scenario is that we say in a couple of years, we have to do something about this. People can't focus anymore on tasks, and then you get like more of that you get rooms where there's no Wi-Fi, where you can concentrate. Like I think that's also a scenario that we can prepare ourselves for, and that people who know themselves, who have more difficulty with putting their phone away, go to those rooms, for example, that they don't they don't get interrupted. So that's also a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, we've got about 10 minutes left. So I actually just there's a few things I wanted to touch on with you. But again, if anyone has questions, then we're happy to take those as well in the time we've got left. What I was thinking about was, I often look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? I always find that super interesting, how, and how that affects behavior. So the bottom being, these kind of more environmental factors, and I do see increasingly, a lot of super interesting research about the impact of light and air quality and that kind of thing. I mean, how do you view those kind of environmental factors in your work that you've done and at Mapiq?
We see it as kind of it's really important. We also are looking at the Maslow pyramid actually, and I think like those, it's kind of like a healthy base you want to have in your office. Like there is like you need a certain amount of daylight during your day, and you need fresh air, for example. And I think that Mapiq is actually contributing in that sense of giving people again that sense of control over those things. So we can, if there's a meeting room for 5 people and we see that there are 10 people in there, the air quality maybe after 30 minutes isn't that good anymore. So people will, not be that focused anymore. In the future, that's something that you can detect and then adjust. So, hey guys, maybe let's move to another room to make sure that quality of air is always, of a certain standard. And the same goes for lighting. If you are sitting next to the window, you will have maybe a much more productive day than if you're, down in the basement somewhere. And technology is able to attend to that and let people know if there are free spaces next to the windows, for example. So I think there's definitely this interaction between those aspects and the way people use it, and make sure that they are aware of the opportunities in the building.
That was interesting, because I guess that you could look at then, like, I don't know, working out or which desks or which areas of the office are in some way more, have better environmental aspects to them. So if
because we all recognize the fact that you're in a meeting with a lot of people, and at some point people start in Dutch it's gapen, but yawning, I think. Like, okay, they doze off. That has to do with the oxygen level.
But even perhaps the technology could tell you that I don't know, maybe think about, or this desk is free at the moment, and there's a lot of natural light there, and there's and the air quality.
Yeah, definitely.
So maybe you get an alert that says why don't you think about moving there?
Yeah, definitely. That's a possibility.
New idea for a new product development at Mapiq.
Feature. People always have great ideas about new features. Yeah.
Okay, final chance. Anybody, if they have any questions for Anne, then now's the time to ask them. I'll take the opportunity just to let you know again that this has been recorded, so I'll be putting that online later today, and we'll also include a link to some of the resources that Anne was talking about, like the white paper, and also a link to the website where you can find more details about her work. I think finally, I wanted to ask about, in terms of the technology, sometimes I've seen, or you can see that not so much a disconnect, but there's like technology in the smart home and technology in the commercial buildings, right, which can be quite separate, and sometimes the technology can come from, let's say, that more home environment, and then I think people's expectation of what they get in an office or in their work environment is increased because they are used to that at home. I mean, does that also apply to kind of more behavioral aspects?
Yeah.
How does that work with people? Are they expectations different for different or?
Yeah, I think it's really logical that that when they already can do something with their smartphone at home, that they kind of expect that to also be the case at their job eventually. That's yeah, I don't know if that has to do with anything specific, only about the fact that you're already experiencing that, you actually experience the reward from that, so you want that at your workplace too. Yeah, I have to think about that. If there's what the relationship is between these things, and if people, where though, yeah, how can you maybe temper those high expectations, because people tend to, always reach for the highest and want more. So that's also how you innovate. So I think, I don't know, it's an interesting point, and I will maybe get back to you. I will get back to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, we're seeing it with, I mean, there's lots of examples of interesting smart home technology. I know there's a lot of buzz around voice activated kind of interfaces now, where they're kind of proliferating in the home environment, but not so much in the commercial space. But I'm wondering if that might change.
Yeah, well, that might happen. Yeah, that's funny. We are exploring that. We are exploring that actually this week. No, it's of course it's something that we also use as an inspiration, and see how far you can take that in the work environment. And yeah, we also try to look at those. I think. Yeah, features, and see how that applies to the work environment. And there are different challenges. There are different. There is other technology in place. So, yeah, it's also then a matter of what can we bring, and how can we use that as an inspiration to bring something that the workplace, to create a better workplace. And sometimes that's not the same thing than creating a better home.
No, exactly. I mean, it's quite different outcomes, I guess, that we want from both. And again, I think that we do want to create, happy, comfortable work environments. But I guess there is, in the back of our minds, of course, we have to be aware that we're also trying to get a different outcome from a work environment. Actually.
Yeah, than from a home. Yeah.
Productive and obviously creating more value and creating more revenue and profit for the businesses.
Exactly.
And it's been really fascinating. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you.
And really, so definitely be keeping an eye on work that you're doing with behavioral research. So feel free to share that with us at any time.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for listening.
I appreciate it, of course. Just quickly say to everyone out there, a thank you to our sponsor, Project Haystack, and don't forget that the Haystack Connect conference is coming up in May, so stick that in your diary, May 13th to the 15th, and that's going to be in San Diego, California. So go to haystackconnect.org to find out a little bit more about that and see if you want to get involved. So yeah, thanks again, Anne, and appreciate you taking the time today, and appreciate everyone for listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.